Nioh is a series that combines deep combat, meaningful exploration, punishing difficulty, and loot. Lots and lots of loot. From weapons and armor to accessories and consumables, Nioh is extremely generous with the gear that it drops and rewards. Within that loot, you'll quickly see just how diverse and complex the equipment systems are, and Nioh 3 is no different. But just because the systems are complex doesn't mean they have to be complicated. Nioh 3 provides multiple tools to help you sort, discard, and recognize which loot is worth focusing on, so you're prepared for the challenges ahead. In this video, we'll break down what to do with the absurd amount of loot you'll gather, along with the key variables to consider so you can tailor your equipment to fit your playstyle and get the most out of your character build. First things first, don't stress over loot, especially during your first playthrough. It's perfectly reasonable to simply equip gear with higher defense and attack numbers early on. Base stats are the most important thing to look at when choosing equipment at the start, and you can easily compare them by opening your equipment list and pressing R3 to sort. You can sort armor by base defense and weapons by attack power, which will list your gear from highest to lowest and make upgrades easy to spot. It's also important to make sure your character can handle the weight of the equipment you're wearing. If your equipment weight starts creeping too high, indicated by yellow numbers, you'll want to invest some level up points into stamina, so you can comfortably carry the armor and weapons that you prefer. Otherwise, heavy gear will slow your character down. If you want to simplify things even further, you can use auto-equip. From the main equipment menu, press R3, select your preferred agility grade, and let the game handle the rest. This will automatically equip armor with the best overall stats based on the agility you choose. It's a good practice during your first playthrough to periodically jump into your equipment menu, tap the R3 button, and make sure that you're keeping up with the levels and increased power of enemies. That said, if you really want to get the most out of your character's stats, there are a few more important variables worth considering. Nioh is notorious for its wide variety of enemies, many of which have different elemental strengths and weaknesses. Because of that, it's smart to keep an eye on elemental resistances when choosing your gear. These come in the form of stat bonuses attached to your weapons and armor. Bonuses can range from increased attack power and faster ki regeneration to defensive boosts and, most importantly, elemental resistances. Paying attention to these stats can make certain encounters significantly easier. Note that to reap the benefits of these special effects, you'll need to make sure that you meet the stat thresholds on each piece of gear. You can also equip matching armor sets, which grant additional stacked bonuses. These can include increased health, higher luck, or bonus attack power for specific stances. If you like keeping your inventory lean while still preparing for what's ahead, it's worth considering these set bonuses when deciding which gear to keep. Holding onto high-stat equipment and useful armor sets is a smart way to stay flexible without hoarding everything. Note that you can press square to access selection settings and lock a piece of gear in your inventory, so that you don't accidentally delete it when you're going through and dismantling or junking your gear en masse. If you find a piece of gear that belongs to a set that you're really interested in, make sure to lock it and keep it around for the end game when you'll be able to soul match it up to your post-game level. The same logic applies to soul cores. When deciding which ones to keep or discard, you can use the resting rights option in the soul core menu. This allows you to discard unwanted soul cores and earn soul fragments, a material you'll need later to enhance your soul cores and guardian spirit. Soul cores also have base attack and defense values, so if you find duplicates, it's usually best to keep the ones with the higher numbers and discard the rest. So we've covered what loot is worth keeping, but what about everything else? To avoid feeling overwhelmed by the sheer volume of gear, it's important to do some inventory housekeeping from time to time, and Nioh gives you several ways to do it. The simplest option is to drop items directly. Open your equipment menu, hover over the item you want to get rid of, and press triangle to drop it into the world. That said, this is a last resort, reserved only for when you literally can't pick up anything else in the field. Ideally, you shouldn't ever get to this point. Chances are you probably want something in return. You can make offerings at a shrine by going into the shrine menu, heading to preparations, and selecting Make an Offering. You can offer one or multiple items and sometimes receive elixirs in return. It's not guaranteed, so think of it as a small gamble for when you're in desperate need of elixirs before a boss fight. If you want your excess loot to directly contribute to your character progression, the best option is the Blacksmith. Disassembling gear lets you break equipment down into materials, which can then be used to forge similar items with better stats. Later on, you'll also unlock reforging, which allows you to re-roll bonuses on your equipment. The Blacksmith is an incredibly valuable resource if you want to squeeze every advantage out of your loot, so be sure to pay her a visit once she becomes available. One other option you have when it comes to offloading your loot is to sell it to a Sudama. Sudama shops can be found all over the open fields you'll explore in Nioh 3, but you can always reliably find one right here in the Eternal Rift to the left of the Blacksmith. Selling loot to Sudamas will get you gold, which, in addition to crafting materials, is needed for any kind of forging or remodeling you do at the Blacksmith. The cost of forging can get pretty pricey if you plan on doing lots of crafting, so sometimes trading your loot for straight-up gold is the way to go. Essentially, think of your loot as its own currency. That currency can be converted into several other types of currency: crafting materials, gold, or experience. You should opt to convert your excess gear into whatever you currently need the most of at the moment. Once you hit New Game Plus, or Shogun's Journey as it's called, another loot management system opens up, Sudama Blessings. If there's a particular set of gear that you really like and you want to get more of, you can add the individual pieces to the Sudama Blessing, which will increase the drop rate of those particular items. This can be very helpful if you really like a particular set and you want to keep those individual pieces at a high level without having to continuously soul match them at the Blacksmith. Instead, you'll just have a higher chance of finding other higher level versions of those pieces of gear as you're playing. Selecting equipment for the Sudama Blessing requires Ochoko Cups, and the more Sukamo fragments you possess, the higher the drop rate will be. Ochoko Cups can typically be obtained by defeating revenants at red grave sites, and Sukomo fragments can be obtained by selling, disassembling, offering, or donating equipment, according to the in-game tooltip. And if you decide to ignore all of this and keep everything, don't worry. Nioh 3 allows you to hold up to 2,000 pieces of equipment, giving you plenty of room to hoard without immediately hitting a limit. So don't stress about the overwhelming amount of loot in Nioh 3. Instead, focus on experimenting with it, fine-tuning your build, and finding creative ways to overcome the game's challenging bosses. Because chances are you're going to need every advantage you can get. Finally, one last tip when it comes to loot management. If you get to a point where you don't even want to bother with common, uncommon, or even rare equipment, and only want to pick up items that are of exotic or divine rarity, there's actually an option in the basic game settings that will make it so you will only get a prompt to pick up equipment that's over a certain level of rarity, which will dramatically help with loot clutter. In addition to that, you can also set an auto disposal filter that will automatically select gear pieces of a certain rarity or lower. You can then set it to dispose of all the excess equipment by either dismantling, selling, or soul extracting, depending on what type of currency you need the most of at the moment. These two little quality of life features will go a long way in preventing your loot from ever getting to the point where it becomes a nightmare to deal with. For more on Nioh 3, check out our wiki page over at IGN.com. And for everything else in gaming, stick with IGN.